just continuing talking about your message, getting deeper. As I told you guys at the beginning of the year, at the beginning of the month, I told you that it was all about you mastering your message, right? Because what people really want is they want more clients, right? They want to be able to make more money, but everything starts with your message. Because if you're not able to attract the people who you are looking for, if you're not able to captivate them where they can pay attention to you, then you won't get them to move further into your client journey. All right. So the first thing, or the first tip or drop that I want to give you this morning is your message isn't just a phrase, it's a platform. Okay, I'm going to say that again. Your message isn't just a phrase, it is a platform. And so when we did the Monetize Your Message Challenge last week, we talked on day one, we talked all about your message, right? This $1 million message and this I help statement and what you're going to say that tells a person who you are, who you help, why you help them, and why they should pay attention. And I think a lot of people get it so messed up thinking that it's just this phrase, and it's really not. There's so many other pieces that make up a message, right? So your message isn't just a phrase, it's a platform. Let me say good morning to, hey, Anne Marie, mom. Good morning. Hey, Demetia. Hey, Anita. Hey, Elaine. Good morning. So that's the first thing that I want to say to you guys. When another thing is, on day one, I gave you guys the 5 messages already. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of like recap that and then go a little bit deeper. All right. If you guys are here and you're watching me on the replay, put hashtag replay below so I can come back and say thank you to you. Okay. All right. So let's begin. Make sure you have your pens. Make sure you have your notebooks. This is going to be good. So let's first start with what marketing is. All right. What is marketing? Marketing is pretty much sharing your message with the right people that inspires them to take action. Okay. So sharing your message with the right people in a way that inspires them to take action. So a lot of people do marketing, but if you're not getting results from it, it's probably because you're not sharing the right message, or you're sharing it with the wrong people, or you're not sharing it in a way that's going to compel and inspire and empower people to take action when you ask them to. And that's really, really important for you to know. Okay. Here's the 5 types of messages that you need. Write this down. I'm going through this really, really quickly, and then I'm going to break it down. Number 1, your core message. We talked about this. If you missed the challenge, I highly suggest that you go back and watch those trainings. They will be in the group until the 29th or the 30th, one of those days. Okay. So the first one is your core message. This is your story. Okay, this is your story. The second one is your $1 million message. This is your marketing message. This is what we focused on in the challenge. So I'm not going to spend time on that today. The third one, this is your magnetic message. Okay. And this is what I like to call is your vision enrollment statement. Because if you want people to, number one, believe that you are the person who can help them reach the desired results, they have to, one, believe in themselves. Then they also have to believe in you. They also have to believe in the process. So, you have to be able to enroll them into this bigger vision that you have for them. Okay. Number 4 is your key messages. All right. So an example of a key message is like what I'm doing right now. My main topics that I talk about in my business is messaging, marketing, and sales. Now, of course, under each one, there are different pieces that go under each one, but my main topics are messaging, marketing, and sales. So what are yours? And what are those key messages that you can start becoming known for? And no matter what capacity you are marketing yourselves. So whether it's through social media content, whether it's through a live stream like what we're doing here, whether it's through you writing an email, whether it's through you speaking on someone's stage, what are those key messages that you always talk about that people can start to identify you with and you can start to become known for? All right. Give me a 1 below if this is making sense. Good morning, Deborah. Good morning, Desiree. All right. So core message, magnetic message, your marketing message, your key messages. And then number 5 is your copy. Again, this is just me recapping what we spoke about, and then we're going to go deeper. All right. All right. So now let's talk about the elements that I believe are important. When it comes to sharing your message, you have to be able to touch both the hearts and the minds of your ideal clients. And the reason why is because people buy through emotion, but they justify through logic. So, have you ever been on a sales call and you will hear someone, they're like, you ask them, well, what made you book the appointment with me? And they're saying to you, well, it just felt right to me. I read your email and it just felt like this is exactly what I need. Or I saw you on a live training and it just felt like this is exactly what I needed. But then when you start to talk about the program, you start to talk about the price of your program and what's included and all of that, they start to justify, do I have the time to do this? Do I have the money to do this? Right? They start to justify to make that decision. So you first have to be able to touch their hearts, right? So that way you can connect with them, but you also have to touch their minds. All right. So let's talk about one, because this brings up a question. How do you touch the hearts of your ideal clients? How do you connect to them on a deeper level? How you do that is through your story, right? And a lot of people forget this part, right? So half of people forget this part, and the other half that knows that they have to share their story misses key elements that make their story connect to their ideal clients. We're going to talk about those elements today, okay? So your story is what's going to help you connect with a person, but it's not only about you. Your story is not only about your journey, it's also about the journey that your ideal client is on at that moment, all right? So let's talk about this. Your story says who you are, why you started your business. Do you remember on day one of the challenge, I gave you guys an assignment and I asked you guys to tell me in the group, why did you start your business? How many of you actually read some of your co-squad members' post? How many of you actually connected with people in here because of the reason behind why they started their business? I'm pretty sure a lot of you did. That's because this is how you connect, okay? So your story says who you are. It says why you started this business. It gives them ups and downs that you've been through, that you faced along the way. It tells them about your unique perspective of why you do what you do and why they should listen to you, okay? So let's talk about ups and downs. Whenever I share with people how to put together their story, and this is something that I do, I have a framework. It's called the Captivating Story Formula. And I help people put together their story in a way that captivates, right? Really simple. And one of the things that I always say is that your story needs to have both vulnerability and credibility, right? Both vulnerability and credibility. When I say vulnerability, I mean being able to share things that you never thought you would share, being able to go deep into those places that, caused you dark times, right? And not everyone has a rag to riches story, but everyone has a story, right? And so I think about me, myself, and this year and everything that I went through in 2020, from getting sick and, first the whole world is stuck inside because of COVID. Then I get diagnosed with cancer, life turned upside down, having to go through all those emotions and all those experiences, still going through it. You might not have ever been diagnosed with cancer before, but you may have felt some of the same feelings I felt. You may have felt fear before. You may have felt loss before. You may have felt worry before. Whatever it is, those are those universal feelings that everybody faces. And when you're able to get vulnerable with people, that's how you connect to their hearts. That's how you connect to their hearts. So it's not about, I have to have this rags to riches story, or I have to have this story that my story is not as deep as other people. It's not about that. It's really about that universal theme that people can connect with in your story. You have to be able to get vulnerable. Let me tell you what most people do when they tell their story. They give a timeline. Okay. So in 2000, I lost my job. And then in 2001, I decided to start a business. And then in 2002, I struggled with being able to get clients, just making this up in my head, right? And they give a timeline of all these events instead of actually telling a story so people can connect with them. Stories is what makes you memorable. Stories is what made, you guys, I don't know if I shared this in the challenge, but I'm gonna share it again anyway. Even if I did, I'm gonna share it again. I remember when I first started in this coaching industry, the first thing I thought I needed, because I didn't know what I know now, the first thing I thought I needed was branding. And that's what everyone thinks they need first, but it's really the message. So the first thing I thought I needed was branding. And I decided to go to a class with a young lady that was big in the branding industry. And she used to go all over different states teaching this branding class. And she came to Philadelphia, and my godmother and I decided to go to the class. And I remember coming home so excited about everything that I learned. And the only thing that I remembered that I told my husband was her story. I remembered how she was in the real estate industry, how she was a broker, how they went behind her back and purchased. Up to this day, this is years ago, and I still remember they went behind her back and they purchased the domain name when she wanted to branch off on herself. And that same year, she lost her son's father and the loss that she felt. Guys, stories are memorable. Not only do you, and here's on top of this, this is just extra. Not only do you need the core story of why you started your business, that search, what sent you on the search to want to do more, whether it is that you left your job to do what you do. Maybe you're a health coach and you went through sickness, and through you getting sick, you decided to, become a vegan. That's something that happened to me, right? So become a vegan. And now you're teaching other people how to be vegan. Whatever that is, there is a story behind it, and that is what's going to help you connect with people. So you got to be able, you can't just give people a timeline of events. You have to share your story in a way that's vulnerable. You have to be willing to open yourself up to people. Remember, you're out here trying to get people to invest high ticket prices into you. They have to trust you. They have to. Have you ever wanted to work with a coach and you're like, man, I want to work with her because I know that she understands me. I know that she's been where I'm at. And because she's been able to overcome what she's overcome, I know that she is the perfect person to help me. How many times have you felt that? Or you may be feeling that right now, right? So you have to be able to give that same feeling to your ideal clients if you want them to trust to invest in you. So number one is vulnerability. Number two is credibility. Let's talk about that. Whenever people hear credibility, guys, they think of, I have to have a coaching certification, or you had to have a college degree, right? These are the things that people automatically think credibility is. But here is where I give you my own unique perspective. Credibility is your experience. So even if you're someone who never graduated college, you are, listen, they say in the Bible that God made robbers and rapists and all types of people into amazing people who changed the world, who we read about. So it really doesn't matter if you graduated college. It doesn't matter if you have a coaching certification. What matters really is your experience. So that's one of the reasons why my motto at Market Your Message LLC is you are the missing ingredient, not all your accolades or whatever the word is. Really, it's your experience. If you have been able to accomplish things, if you've been able to overcome things, if you've been able to, and even if you haven't done it for yourself, but you've done it for other people, it's experience. So in the marketing world, they call that case studies. I just call it you sharing your story, being able to take people from vulnerability to credibility, right? Being able to, for me, a lot of times when I share my story, I share about how I started my hair salon. And I thought that it was going to be great. I thought I finally made it. I had a storefront, okay? So I was feeling myself, all right? And I was doing hair and I was working for myself, what I always wanted. And then one day I get the letter that I had to leave because I could not keep up. I'm not going to go through my whole story now, but chain of events caused me to not be able to keep up with all the bills in the hair salon. And so one day there I am with the lights off, with a letter in my hand, and it says, you have 30 days to leave the premises. And so everything changed for me. I had to hit rock bottom. I felt depressed. I felt like a failure. I felt like, here I go again. Keep trying, and nothing could ever work out for me. And then one day I was on YouTube and I saw a video and it said teen mom teen mom on food stamps, on welfare. That's what it was. Teen mom on welfare turned millionaire. And it caught my attention. And I started looking at the video, and it was the same lady that I told you guys about in the challenge. She was sitting in her home in DC in her dining room. She looked so beautiful. And she was talking about all the things that she experienced, how she was pregnant, mopping floors, and all the things that she overcome to now be a millionaire, helping other women. And tears start rolling down my eyes because I knew that I had what it took. And that video was my turning point to want to do better. And here I am today. Again, I'm not going to go through all the story, but how many of you can resonate with that? Excuse me. How many of you have been in a place where you felt like, oh my goodness, here I am starting over. I keep pushing, and things are not working out. How many of you can resonate? It might not be the same story. You may never have lost a hair salon. You may have never, been on welfare like me, but you've been in that specific position, okay? And you've had those feelings before. And me seeing that video is what caused me to go in a search for more. It's what made me start sharing my story on Instagram, telling people how I lost the salon, the lessons that I learned. And from that, people started saying they resonated with me. That's the reason why I'm so passionate about your message and you sharing your story and your experiences, because that's my claim to fame. I don't have all the big degrees I have a degree, but I don't have as much as some people have, but I have that. Does that make sense? So you have to be willing to get vulnerable, and you also have to be willing to share your credibility, and don't let the fear of you not having certain things that you may see other people have stop you from sharing that. You need both in your story to be able to connect to the hearts of your ideal clients. I hope that this is making sense for y'all. Okay, so number one is your story. Let's continue. Number two, we're not going to stick on that. That's your marketing message. We spoke all about that last week in the challenge. I again urge you to go and watch the replay. I'm not going to stick on that. It is just your I help statement. And it says, who do you help? How do you help them? Why should they pay attention? What is that transformation that you're providing them? And being able, again, to connect with their deepest desires. So you see how everything goes back to the heart, because people buy through emotion and they justify through logic. So you got to make sure that when you are sharing your message, you're also touching their deepest desires. That's what really makes a person inspired and compelled to take action. Okay. All right. Hey, DeMonica, what's up, girl? Okay. Next, number three, these are your key messages. So I spoke about that a little bit in the beginning. You got to have, I advise that you guys have three messages, like three key messages that you focus on under your brand. So let's say you're in the finance industry. Let's say you are I think Elaine, who focuses on helping baby boomers become financially free. I don't know her exact statement, but I know that's who her ideal client are. And let's say your first one is budgeting, your second one can be investing, and your third one can be retirement. Okay, which is kind of, there's a way to invest through retirement, but that's another story. So let's say that those are your three topics, your three key topics. When you know what your key topics are, you're now able to create an umbrella of topics that always lead to your key messages. And when you're able to do that, what happens again is people start to identify you with these messages. So when you see, I always give the example of, people go in Facebook groups and they'll be like, hey, I'm looking for somebody who can do my taxes for my business, someone who can keep my books. If you are always speaking on your key topics, you're the person that people are always going to recommend. When there are speaking engagements, summits, and conferences that people are having, and they want to focus on this particular topic, your name is going to come up. Why? Because you focus on key messages. Another mistake that people make when it comes to their marketing online is being all over the place. So in Monetize Your Message, we spoke about speaking to everyone, but today I'm going to talk to you about speaking about everything. Because some people speak to everyone, but then there's some people who I found that one person, but I'm speaking about everything. And for me and the people who I serve, when you're trying to position yourself as a high ticket coach, as an expert in this industry, as an authority in your niche, a thought leader, these are all the words that you're going to hear online that people, that means an expert, okay? You have to focus in and narrow in on that one thing. So my advice to you is to pick 3 key topics and then start doing subtopics under each one and keep yourself cohesive. I'm going to go into the 5 elements of a copy in a minute, and cohesive is actually one of them. Okay. So your key messages are your topics that you speak on. Now, the other thing about your key message is that there are topics that you preach about, okay? So there are topics that you teach about, and then there are topics that you preach about. So for example, the topics that I preach about a lot is not giving up, is not making excuses because of your circumstances. And if you guys listen to what my preaching topics are, you're going to see how much they match my story, because I was someone that didn't have my circumstances was starting from rock bottom. My circumstances was never having a job that was paying me over at least $10. My circumstances was being a single mom with 2 children on public assistance, on welfare. You know, me getting in trouble with the law, me disappointing my family, me making all these mistakes. No, growing up as a church girl and then being on parties all the time. This was my life. My circumstances wasn't the same, wasn't great. Yet I was able to overcome that. Yet I didn't let those circumstances keep me down. Even now, as I stand in front of you, I could be vulnerable and I can share these things with you. Why? Because I've been able to overcome those circumstances. So when I think of my preaching topics, those are my preaching topics. What are yours? And it goes back to that universal theme of your story. This is why I always map out the story with my clients first, because when we can come up with your universal theme, it's going to help everything else, all your marketing, how you connect with people, and your sales, everything easier. All right. So you have your teaching topics and you have your preaching topics. I'm going to challenge you guys to let me know below. Give me one of your teaching topics and one of your preaching topics. Okay. One teaching and one preaching. Let me know below. I'm going to read some of them before I leave. Okay. Last but not least, the 5th message that you need, this is your copy. This is what you write on your website, your landing pages, your sales pages, your emails, your content, your videos. This is your copy, okay? And your copy must do these 5 things. Write this down. Number 1 is it has to be engaging. All right. So a lot of times I see people market themselves online. I'm just going to use social media content and like live streams as an example, because they're, like I said, there's websites, there are emails, there's all of that. But a lot of people, they'll market themselves online, but then when you read it, it's like it doesn't compel people to take action because it's not engaging, right? And so you have to think of, when you're writing your copy, you have to engage people. So I'm going to just give you an example of what I do here. Like, do you see how less than a minute ago I said, hey, below, I want you to tell me what are your preaching topic and give me one of your teaching topic. That's just a real simple example of creating some engagement on a live stream and getting people to, take action and engage with me. There are other ways that you can do that on your social media content. So let's say you're giving 3 tips. The other day I gave you guys 3 tips, the 3 things that I believe you need to be a successful coach. And then at the end, I asked you, what do you think? What are some of the ways what are the things that you think you need to become a successful coach? This is engaging people. All right. Now, engagement matters to keep people's attention. You got to be able to keep people not only getting their attention, but keeping their attention, right? Engagement helps with keeping their attention, But then engagement also helps when you think of social media. This is not a social media training this morning, so I'm not going to go too deep into that. But have you guys heard of how the algorithms, how you can have like 5,000 followers, but only about 5% of those followers are ever seeing your post? That's because you haven't created enough engagement, right? So you have to make sure that everything that you're doing as it pertains to your copy is very engaging. You got to engage people. Number two, you have to inspire people. And following the tips that I gave you today in terms of sharing your story, why you got into business, your vulnerability, your credibility pieces, all of that inspires people. So that's why I said everything starts with that first thing, because it makes everything that you do after a lot easier. But you have to inspire people. Okay. So you just can't always say, well, 5 elements to make up a powerhouse message, which is today's topic. I got to be inspiring in some way, right? Else you're not going to stay and keep listening to me. So you have to think about that when you're writing your copy. You engage people and you inspire people. Number 3, it has to be clear. And so this is the reason why we're focused on your messaging this month, because your message has to be clear. You can't speak to everyone. You can't speak about everything. And so I just want you to think of like one social media post, right? Let's just say you're writing a post. I'm going to use this, what we're doing right here, as an example. Let's say my post is all about the 5 elements that make up that makes up a powerhouse message. I'm not going to add other things into that post. I'm going to focus on one, captivating them, getting their attention with a nice headline. Number 2, talking about the problem, right? So I can grab them in talking about their problem. Number 3, maybe give an example or 2 sentences that represent my story so I can engage and connect with them, right? Then I'll give them those 5 tips, and maybe I'll end with a call to action or some type of question that makes them engage back with me. But that's the anatomy of a post, of a piece of copy that's going to attract people. Another thing that I see people doing, you got these nice programs and events and things that you're doing, and you just put a flyer out there with a link. That's not going to make someone click. You need copy. You need words. You need to inspire and engage people, and it needs to be clear. Okay. Number 4, it needs to be concise. And so what I mean, and this one I struggled with, so I'm be real honest with y'all. This one is one that I struggle with a lot. And concise just means not overwhelming. Now, I struggle with this, and I feel like the reason why I struggle with this part is because I get so passionate that I just want to give you everything. And sometimes I forget that people are at different places, that I can't just throw up all over them. I got to give it to them in bite size. And so this is something that I've actively been working on every year. That's one of the reasons why last year, Money Marketing Monday used to go over an hour. This year, I've been trying to keep it to like 30 minutes tops, right? Because this is something that I struggle with. So it needs to be clear, but it also needs to be concise, not too overwhelming and comprehensive where people is like, oh man, I can't grasp what she's saying so I can take action. Okay. And then number 5, it needs to be genuine. Oh, this is a big word. It needs to be genuine. And I feel like this goes back to you teaching from your own experience, you teaching from your own story helps you to be genuine, helps you to be authentic. A lot of people struggle with imposter syndrome. And I hear a lot of leaders and motivational speakers would try to give you tips on, feel the fear and do it anyway. And I just got to keep it real with you. A lot of people suffer with imposter syndrome because they're being imposters, and not on purpose. And I can say that to you because of how long I've been in this industry, teaching a lot of coaches. And then when we get into their story and we dig deep into their experience, we realize what they really should be teaching about. And so they find themselves teaching about things that fit with the industry, or teaching about things that they think is going to make them money. A big industry that does this a lot is like life coaches. And it's so sad to say it, but I see it so much, where they start teaching marketing and business because they feel like that's the only way they're going to make money. But deep in their heart, they have a passion to be in the life coaching industry. And there's something about their journey and things that they've overcome and accomplished and experienced that they can really connect and help other people. But because they struggle with it, they go into doing something that's norm because they feel that that's going to make them money, right? And then they feel like an imposter. I know for me, I struggled with this in the beginning. And I'm going to tell you why. And it's because, like I said, when I first started in the coaching industry, I had lost my business and I was starting over. I was still on all these different government programs. I really wasn't making a lot of money. I lost everything and I was not making a lot of money. But here I was teaching people about business. And so I felt a level of imposter syndrome because I would be like, how can I teach people how to make money when I'm struggling to make money myself? That's how I felt. If you guys can resonate with that, just give me a one below, because a lot of people can, been in this position or are in this position right now, right? And so I felt like, man, how could I? And it made me not show up powerfully because of that. So then one day I'm like, okay, Nyala, you can't stay stuck. What are you gonna do? And I was on a free webinar. I can't remember who was teaching the webinar, but I was on a free webinar and they were talking about being able to identify what you're really good at. And they gave us a challenge or an assignment to write down all the things that we thought we were good at and that we were able to accomplish. Now, one of the things that I was able to accomplish was I was able to get a lot of followers on Instagram. I was good with knowing how to write to make people take action. I used to come up with all these ideas and campaigns and stuff to grow my Instagram. Even with my hair salon, I was using my Instagram page to get new people into the salon. My ads that I used to write for Craigslist, I was just really good at that. And so I wrote that down, and that came to be my number one thing. And so instead of me teaching, I tweaked things, and I said, instead of me teaching people how to make money, I'm going to teach people how to grow on Instagram. And I started teaching people how to grow their following. My first lead magnet was actually the Instagram daily checklist. And that was my first time even getting reviews, because people would download the checklist for free and follow it, and they would get followers. And then they would come back and they'll be like, oh, I was able to get 100 followers in this amount of time. And it helped build my confidence. And then as I grew, my message grew. As I evolved, my message evolved. As I started to learn more skills, now I had more things in my arsenal that I could teach people. And so you might feel like an imposter. You feel like you're struggling with imposter syndrome because you may be an imposter. And again, you're not doing this on purpose. But if I don't say this, how will I make you stop and think for a minute and ask yourself, am I teaching on the things that I have experienced and that I could back up? And again, I'm not talking about a degree. I'm not talking about a certification. I'm talking about experience. This is how you're going to be genuine. This is how you're going to be authentic. And this is how you're going to be confident. So when you come out here and you start to teach people, you show up with confidence. That confidence is what's going to attract people.